Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and boy, do I have a good feeling about this morning show. I always have a good feeling, but this is extra special this morning. Why? Because we have more than two really, but two important Steuben Senior Services Fund interview sections of our program. First off, a little bit later on, we're going to be talking towards the end of the 6 o'clock hour. We're going to be talking to Corning Painted Post Middle School, their drama club. They're performing Peter Pan the Musical, and tonight is opening night. Well, actually, why don't I do this? We'll give them a little extra promotion just so you know who we'll have on the program. This is our guests, and that's when the performances will be happening, July 11th through the 13th at 7 p.m. and the 13th at 2 p.m. And those will be our guests coming up in a little bit. And then, fan favorite, I know I always say that, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski will be joining us. So get your questions in ahead of time. We have so much to get to. I think Joe's the only guest I have that there's about 2 to 3 pages worth of questions, and I think we end up getting to about 3 of them, and that's my fault. Also, we're going to be playing a nice little clip from our Big Fox News at 10 about the moving wall coming to Pennsylvania. That is a little bit later on. So stay with us throughout the whole program. First up, a couple comments that we missed yesterday on the program. Does anyone really believe that they didn't see the decline in Biden's condition? But if it's remotely possible, then what else did they not see or refuse to see, and that they did see? Was that the fake media promoted? Wouldn't you think some minds would open up to the incredible abuse of power and the destruction, or attempted destruction, I would add, of a former president? Yeah, they knew. I mean, Chuck Todd saying, 2 years ago, a cabinet member told him that Biden shouldn't serve again. Well, thanks for mentioning it, Chuck. We appreciate that. Thanks for the cover-up for the last probably 3.5 years. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone about Biden's decline. I think what opened the eyes to a lot of people, the corruption of the media, the corruption in Washington, where they essentially lied to you for 3.5 years. So thank you for that comment. Next up, I think it's interesting that we haven't heard from Ron DeSantis in a while. At least I haven't. Could he be the VP pick? Interesting. That piqued my interest. And then I happened to see yesterday that originally he wasn't slated to speak at the national convention. Now he is, because there was some backlash that Nikki Haley wasn't on the list and that DeSantis wasn't on the list. And I guess they made some corrections, added, at least I saw DeSantis. I'm not sure about Haley. But DeSantis did get the nod. But that doesn't mean that speech isn't the acceptance speech either. I don't think that's a bad choice. I mean, or a bad opinion, that he has been relatively quiet. Interesting. But maybe, because we keep talking about a sleeper pick, someone out of left field, not politically, that Trump picks that was never mentioned on the list. I know he was talking about some of the issues that he had with some of the potential shortlist VPs, and then some of the positives the other day. But here's one coming from the New York Post. Trump's ex-wife, Marla Maples, stands by the former president, ready to help his campaign, and would be open to his being his vice president. Now that would be just when things couldn't get more interesting. We'll put it that way, to not sound biased. Could you imagine an ex-husband and ex-wife team running for president and vice president? There you go. Maybe that's the sleeper pick we've been waiting for, Marla Maples. Okay, this is, to start off the program, which is going to be an amazing program, start off on what, depending on what your perspective is, this is really good news, because we're not biased here on Frankly Speaking, or really, really bad news to start off your morning. I'll let you judge it. According to Newsweek, young people are flocking to the Republican Party. Young people appear to be flocking to the Republican Party, according to figures in a new poll from the Pew Research Center that surveyed or Americans' party affiliation. The National Public Opinion Reference Survey, published by Pew Research, has drawn significant attention because it shows the GOP leading among those under 30 years old. They found that among all respondents, 47% said they were Republican or leaned Republican, while 46% said they were Democrat or leaned towards the Democrats. By subgroup, the headline is Age. The New York Times chief political analyst Nate Cohen wrote on X. They found that the GOP is ahead on leaned party ID among 18 to 29-year-olds, even though the sample was Biden plus 20 on 2020 recall vote. Anyway, so either positive or negative, depending on your perspective this morning. We also have, just double checking there, I forgot to make sure we were smooth sailing, but look at all these waves coming in already. Also, we are going to talk about this with the former congressman, because I shouldn't say that because we run out of time so often, but I really hope we can get to this. Politico has a piece where a Biden supporter kind of slipped. Now, it's anecdotal. It's a Biden supporter. But they said we're a battleground state now. That Biden supporter lives in deep blue New York. Now, you've heard my opinion on this, my perspective on this, that I'm jaded and I don't have a lot of hope when it comes to New York going red at any point in nearly any national election, federal election, statewide, maybe. President Joe Biden has a new problem. A competitive race in deep blue New York. What are your thoughts on this? I know the polls before the disastrous debate, as they keep calling it, before that, Trump was in single digits of Biden, which is unheard of. But elected officials, union leaders, and political consultants are panicking over polls showing a steady erosion of Biden's support in a state that he won back in 2020 by 23 points. They're so worried that they've been trying to convince the Biden team to pour resources in New York. And I've got news for you. Those resources are drying up. I'm sure you saw the news. Once you lose George Clooney, you've lost the race, as we all know. But that goes to show you that some of the mega donors, the big fundraising numbers, I saw a piece this morning that said this month, Biden's fundraising numbers could be cut in half from the normal standing. That's, sadly, we talk about money in politics, but that is perhaps the most damaging to Biden's chances of staying in till November. But you would say there's no way that they would dump precious resources into New York. Biden aides have not focused on New York, committing no significant resources to a state they expect the president to easily win all 28 Electoral College votes in November, but the warning signs are impossible to ignore and have been building over the past year. 2 private polls conducted in swing New York House districts and reviewed by Politico, one in September and another in March, found former President Donald Trump leading Biden there by 1 point, a virtual tie. And public polls over the last 4 months found Biden's lead had winnowed to just 8 points across New York. An unusually narrow gap in a state where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. Democrat Manhattan Bureau President Mark Levine said, "We're still acting like this is a one-party state, which for pretty much 25 years it has been. I truly believe we're a battleground state now." Wow. Truly believe we are a battleground state. Now, if you recall, New York did, as a state, not the city or anything, but as the state, did give the Republicans the House. And that was really because of Lee Zeldin's hard campaign work and really hitting the ground with an important message about public safety. And that's why so many inside the Democrat Party were concerned that Governor Hochul came that close to losing. So it's kind of interesting. And again, I hope that we can get an opportunity to talk to Joe Sempolinski about that a little bit later on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to save this article. I'm going to staple it. Let's put it off to the side so we can talk to Joe about it later on in the program. But maybe one of the reasons why you see this becoming a battleground state, and this is very disturbing. According to a new poll, now this new poll was conducted by New York Solidarity Network, which is they put here, quote, pro-Israel group, but they found that 44% of the 1,200 Jewish voters in New York City and other counties that they asked, 44% of Jews said they felt unsafe in New York, as did 67% of Orthodox Jews. Wow. So nearly half of Jewish voters in New York State feel unsafe in the state. So that adds on top of why it's a battleground state. That's one of many reasons. But you see public safety, which this is a part of public safety. You see the policies and positions coming out of New York. So perhaps, who knows, on election night, I hope that I am eating crow and somehow this state turns red. Again, I'm jaded and I fully admit that. So I have my doubts. But I would love to hear your position on it. I know we've put up some great fights in the past. It just, you get beat down so many times. You start to lose hope, but you shouldn't lose hope. And that's why I fully admit that I'm jaded. But do not lose hope. Who knows? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think New York goes Trump, or even becomes in this place, according to that poll, at least in so close that they have to dump funds from the Biden campaign into New York? Kind of fascinating. So there's some interesting stories to start off with. Like I said, we've got an exciting show in store, because if that's what we just started with, imagine what else we have on the way. We are going to talk about Biden. Of course, today is the biggest press conference. I think this was CNN who said it. Biggest press conference in modern history. There's a lot of press conferences, so that's kind of surprising. But yes, President Biden will be giving that press conference, which is kind of funny that it's a rare event for the president to give a press conference. But this one, of course, very important, coming off of the disastrous, what would you call it, PR campaign maybe after the debate. I'm trying to stay away from using disastrous, but you had the debate, which was so bad. And since then, all the ways to fix it and instill confidence in this administration and in the election have pretty much failed miserably. So we've got a lot to talk about with that. We're just getting started. I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Just reading all these amazing comments coming in, so you get a little extra music. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to play some catch up here. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and thank you for all these comments and waves coming in this morning. We're just getting started, and I'm already overwhelmed by how great this show is going to be. Okay, a couple comments. The reason New York is blue is due to Democratic cities. The rest of the state is conservative. No, I agree. I totally agree with that. I mean, if you just look at the map, it's kind of startling. So I agree. It's New York City. It's the Buffaloes of the world that are controlling the narrative, if you will. There's no disagreement. I mean, I think that's undeniable. Biden's failed presidency and Hochul's policies could turn the state. You do have a point there. I mean, you look at public safety. You look at so many issues going on in the state that maybe people are starting, for lack of a better word, to wake up. Next up, if New York goes for Trump, I'll pay my taxes with a smile. But there can be a Trump flag in front of every house in upstate New York, and it still wouldn't make up for the drop boxes in the bureaus. Interesting. Thank you. I think, and here's another, these are all different comments. I think the taxpayers of New York State are tired of the radical one-party government here and realize that Hochul and her cadre of leftists are destroying New York State, running the Biden agenda to a T and ignoring what's good for the taxpayers. I think Trump will flip New York if they don't cheat like last time. To your point, the one-party rule in Albany, I think a lot of people are waking up to how bad that truly is, because these policies are affecting everybody. You know, it's just like at the national level when we talk about Biden with inflation, and they say, no, the inflation's fine. You're nuts to think otherwise. It's better than ever. The economy's better. And then we go to the grocery store, right? We always talk about this on the program. You go to the grocery store and you say, wait a minute. They're lying to us. It's the same with, and I keep pointing to public safety, but that's, I think, a prime one, where how many people, no matter what their party affiliation, has been affected by this increase in crime, this increase in violence. So I hope people are waking up to, wow, we got the NASCAR going on out there. I hope people are waking up to these failed policies and what happens when it's one-party rule in Albany. And that'll be maybe something interesting to bring up with Joe, because Joe Sempolinski is running for New York State Assembly to make a change there. Okay, the big story. Can you imagine a time where you would turn on the news and every story wouldn't be about Donald Trump and some scandal or whatever they want to call it? They always have some new outrage. That's a better term. Some new outrage over Trump. Now and some of it is Trump being very discreet, being very disciplined. And I think that, just like during the debate, I think it's a good move. Watch the chaos of the Democratic Party's civil war. I think that's a good move, personally. But it's also because they're so laser-like focused on Biden as if this is breaking news. It's very reminiscent of Hunter, right? With Hunter Biden, when the story finally broke, the news outlets had to go back and report on the laptop and go back, a year or two, and report on information that they would never give to their viewers and listeners. So it's very much the same here where, let's play some catch up because we refuse to tell you about this. We refuse to inform you about this because we were doing the cover up. Now, I understand ABC News was furious over, and that's a quote, after George Stephanopoulos said Biden can't serve another White House term. What a weird place for George Stephanopoulos to do that, too, by the way. Just out for a walk, and someone gets him on camera and says, hey, gets the camera in front of his face, hey, what do you think? And he responds, which I guess he should practice this on his newscast. He actually was honest. And so ABC News was very upset with that honesty, to the point of furious, said a top ABC News executive. Now, this is on anonymity, and this is also coming from the New York Post. But the candid clip of Stephanopoulos, published by TMZ, reportedly sparked an internal meeting at ABC, which resulted in O'Connell, meaning Deborah O'Connell, the news division head, asking George Stephanopoulos to apologize for his remark, which he did. He said, earlier today, I responded to a question from a passerby. I shouldn't have. Yes. Sorry. So essentially, can I read between the lines? Sorry, I was honest. I know that's not what you expect from us. Sorry in this instance that I was truthful. What a weird place the media is in right now. And they're also, many have to be careful because they realize if they say these things, and Biden does end up getting the nomination, they've got a tough row to hoe to kind of come back and say, no, never mind. No, this whole time we thought he was okay. Now, again, they're not scared of being hypocrites. We know that. But it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to cover this. And, like I said, once you lose George Clooney, you lose the country. Because his endorsement means a lot, I guess. And yesterday he called on Biden not to run. Okay, whoop-de-doo. So we've got to take another short break. When we come back, I'm going to play that clip, and I'll highlight what the clip is when we come back from break. Don't forget, Corning Painted Post Middle School, their drama club's going to be in at the bottom of the hour, and then at the top of the hour, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us this morning. Like I said, I knew this was going to be a good show. Our friend Sonia Ellison from Big Fox News at 10 put together a really nice package yesterday. I wanted to highlight this for you only because I had meant to, last week, promote this event, and it slipped my mind. And I apologize for that profusely because it is such an important event, and I know it's something you're not going to want to miss. So I appreciate her sending this to us because this is from last night's Big Fox News at 10.
A motorcade began this morning at Painted Post Hampton Inn, ending at Williamson High School to remember fallen soldiers from the Vietnam War while kicking off the moving wall coming to Tioga, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of effort put into it.
After about a year of fundraising, organizing, labor, and volunteering to make it possible, Williamson High School unveiled the moving wall in a special ceremony today.
Some memories, however, are very sad. I personally know over a dozen names who are listed on the wall.
In the ceremony, the names were read of the local Vietnam veterans from Potter, Bradford, and Tioga counties who died in combat.
A memento that some people don't get.
The moving wall is a half-size replica of the original Vietnam Veterans Memorial, The Wall, in Washington, D.C. As of right now, 58,300 names of soldiers who were direct casualties of the Vietnam War are on the replica of the monument, including 1,300 who are still considered missing in action.
A lot of them are forgotten that shouldn't be.
Vietnam veterans like Ron Heath appreciate the moving wall as a way to remember and honor his fellow soldiers.
Very nice. I'm glad that they do things.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it here. Yeah, it's about time.
The moving wall is now on display at Williamson High School until next Monday, July 15th. This is one of the two replicas of the monument that have toured the country since 1984 as a way to honor Vietnam veterans that gave the ultimate sacrifice. Sonia Ellison, Big Fox News, Tioga.
Thank you so much. That's our friend Sonia Ellison from Big Fox News at 10. And I know you'd want to see that. That was moving, hence the name Moving Wall. So a couple comments from viewers. Stephanopoulos is still controlled by the Clintons and their Marxist comrades. Can you imagine that they present him as a journalist, and yet Rhoda McDaniel isn't allowed to work? And I can't remember what station was it that booted her off. That was that NBC? Because she had the audacity to work for the Trump administration. But how thick in the Clinton administration was George Stephanopoulos? Next comment, and I like this comment a lot. You know the rule here on Frankly Speaking. If it's a compliment, you're getting bumped to the list no matter what. George Clooney finally realized that there wasn't anything on TV worth watching except for Frankly Speaking, so he had to make a headline. I agree. It is very Hollywood egotistical to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to let you know what I believe about politics. And unfortunately, in the way the world works, it does get attention. But I want to remind you, whatever he thinks about the race, there's that famous video that was put together after Trump won back in 2016, and it was kind of the lead up to the election night and then after the election night, where you had the news teams crumbling at the end of the night. But at the beginning, when they're going around talking to all those people, mark my word, he's never going to win, these type of things, he was one of the ones that was so confident he's not going to win. You know, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was so cocky that it was perfect in that clip. So yes, he's very full of himself, but it did make headlines. Speaking of the media, Chuck Todd, NBC's chief political analyst, has revealed that a senior member of Joe Biden's cabinet told him 2 years ago that they had serious concerns about the president running again. The White House had to. They had to drag it out of him that they've had the neurological test. They have no credibility left on this topic, he said. You want to talk about credibility? Yes, they did lose credibility. They had to backtrack on what they said about the neurological test. You've seen that in the news. But then he goes on to say, I'm not gonna out the cabinet secretary, right? But I had a cabinet secretary 2 years ago, all out of the blue, ask me, do you really think he's going? He's going to do it. He can't run again like this. That was 2 years ago. He's confident in saying that was 2 years ago. Somebody told me that. Well, that's interesting. It comes up now when everybody's doing the doggy pile on Joe Biden. Why didn't you report that 2 years ago? Oh, that's right, because then you had to still stick up for him. Then you still had to say he was the guy that could beat Trump. I mean, they're not even shy about the fact that they lied and covered this up for that long. They're almost, in this case, almost bragging about the fact that they covered this up for that long. And you wonder why the media poll after poll shows that they've lost credibility with the American people. They've lost all credibility in the White House for backtracking on that neurological test. I mean, 2 years ago, somebody told me about how bad Biden was. And it just comes up yesterday, huh, Chuck Todd? That's the first time you had the opportunity to bring it up. Okay. We're going to take another short break. The breaks are going to be a little skewed this morning. Not by much, but I want to make sure we have as much time as possible with Joe Sempolinski. And if he comes in early, we've got that interview right before. So we're going to try to do the math as best as we can so I'm not running late and to take as few breaks in the 7 o'clock hour as possible. So if any of that makes sense, well, good for you. Could you explain it to me? We'll take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Broadcasting live, of course, from the Hesselson studio. Coming up during the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program, we'll be talking with Joe Sempolinski. And right before that, we'll be talking with Corning Pain and Post Middle School Drama Club. Okay, comment from a viewer. Chuck Todd's statement absolutely proves the White House should be called the Lie House, as we've been lied to since Trump ran in 2016 and won. There's obviously a cover-up. I mean, Chuck Todd isn't denying it there. He's almost braggadocious about it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how else to look at it. By the way, I see that Biden has set up a primetime interview with NBC's Lester Holt. I wonder if it's going to be Dateline. That's what I think of when I think of Lester Holt, the beginning of Dateline. But let's see. Nope, not Dateline. NBC Nightly News for a primetime special Monday. Oh, wow. Okay, so we're planning that the election campaign, the Biden election campaign, is still going to go on through Monday, airing at 9 p.m. to coincide with the first night of the RNC convention in Milwaukee. Wow, time flies. I didn't even think about that. The interview follows a string of post-debate media appearances, including on ABC and MSNBC, as well as his upcoming press conference scheduled today. Now, that'd be interesting to watch right before the convention. I probably won't have a chance to talk to Joe about the convention. Oh, by the way, I think this is funny, since we're just picking on the media this morning. Coming from the Media Mix, which sounds like I think it's a trade publication, CNN's opinion section is no more. Staff told current operations are winding down. So if there is no more CNN opinion section, is there any more CNN? I wonder? Or is that the end of CNN? Because you can hardly call it news. That's interesting. They're getting rid of their opinion section. All right. So to the reference that Chuck Todd was making, in case you weren't aware, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who I don't envy her job right now, let me tell you. Whatever you think of her and the job that she's done, that is not a position that you would want to be in at this moment, especially considering, and I'm not being rude, she hasn't really done that great of a job at it. And that's not, I mean, that's coming from insiders anonymously, but they were saying they were sick of her just reading from notebooks and the like. But she admits giving false information about Biden neurology visit after a health misdirection. President Biden was seen by neurologist Kevin Kennard, who specializes in Parkinson's disease, at the White House back on January 17th. That was admitted by Jean-Pierre late Tuesday, hours after telling reporters the exact opposite at her regular briefing. The clarification came just a day after Jean-Pierre scolded a journalist for noting the press was miffed at her for giving misleading information last week on whether Biden was medically evaluated after his catastrophic June 27th debate performance. Because the date was not mentioned in the question, I want to be clear that the January 17th meeting between O'Connor and Dr. Kennard was for the president's physical. Boy, they're not making this any easier on themselves, are they? But, again, you saw the letter from Biden. He's staying in it. So I know I've been asking this question nearly every day. Do you think in November Biden will be on the ticket? A lot of big names dropping out with their support. I think, sadly, I don't think, the more I've thought about it, let me put it this way. You know, if he loses Pelosi, which he kind of is, if he loses Obama, he loses some of these big names, I still think at the end of the day, what it really matters is when he loses the donors. And that's where we're at right now. He's hemorrhaging money, according to reports. Of course, nothing official yet with the numbers, but some have speculated that the fundraising haul could be cut in half this month. And he's losing. Some of the people he's really losing aren't the biggest of names, meaning it's not the Pelosi's, though they're getting wishy-washy. The Obamas, like that. But Vermont's Peter Welch is the first Democratic senator to call on Biden to end re-election. I, like the folks across the country, am worried about the November election. The stakes could not be higher. We cannot unsee President Biden's disastrous debate performance. We cannot ignore or dismiss the valid questions raised since that night. I understand why President Biden wants to run. He saved us from Donald Trump once and wants to do it again. But he needs to reassess whether he is in the best, or if he is the best candidate to do so. In my view, he is not. All right. Also, there was that, I don't know, yeah, I guess it was a hot mic. That Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's a big Biden supporter, was caught on a hot mic sharing a gloomy outlook on the presidential race. Very much a Stephanopoulos-esque. That's probably the worst way of trying to compare something. But yeah, basically saying something behind closed doors that he should be saying to the public. I mean, we're just going to keep fighting. I don't know what to say. You know, you got to do what we have to do. I don't like where we are, he said. Yikes. All right, they keep coming in. We've got to take another break. Stay with us. Coming up in less than 10 minutes. Corning Painted Post, Middle School, Drama Club, and then after that, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. So we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I know what you're asking yourself. How did we ever do this in 1 hour? I'm starting to think we may need 3 for a program like this. So stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So many great comments coming in this morning. And I can't thank you enough. And don't forget to get your questions or just your comments in for Joe Sempolinski. Okay, here is a few more statements from viewers. We should thank Biden for showing us that filling cabinet and administration positions by checking all the boxes is utterly disastrous. Yeah, I know, who was it? Oh, I don't want to quote because I know they got in a little trouble, but suggesting that Kamala Harris could be the first DEI president. Got in some trouble for that. But I do think this shows us because, listen, there are the people running him behind the scenes, running the what's going on. But there's also some very disastrous people in his cabinet and administration, disastrous for his campaign and for his future. Next up, is Lester Holt a registered Democrat? Obviously, he can't be a registered Republican, right? If you notice, sometimes journalists will say, oh, I'm an independent. But everything is very pro-Democrat because as this viewer continues, it seems most of the national broadcast stations are slanted towards the Democrat mindset. Yeah, I could not agree more. It is refreshing to watch your show daily. Hey, because you don't try to force your political views on your listeners. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I will see if we can get an interview, a sit-down interview with President Biden. We'll see if I'm on the short list. I think it'd be fair. I would do it. According to a scoop from Axios, our Senator, Chuck Schumer, is open to dumping Biden in 2024, according to this headline. In public, Schumer, this is another interesting thing, and I know it's typical. I mean, we're not learning anything by this. But out front, they're right behind Biden. We can't wait for this campaign. But they keep getting caught behind closed doors, or either caught, like the hot mic with Pritzker, or George Stephanopoulos being caught off guard for some reason by someone with a camera in his face as he's out walking, giving finally an honest answer. So there's those people, but then there's anonymous sources like this, but still something to keep in mind. In public, Schumer has been insistent that he is for Joe. So again, in private, he's singing a different tune. So they're almost admitting it now that, yeah, we're going to tell you one thing to your face, but behind closed doors, we mean another thing. We completely don't believe in what we're saying. To you, the voter, to the American people, we don't truly believe what we're telling you. Over the last 12 days, Schumer has been listening to donors' ideas and suggestions about the best way forward for the party, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in discussions with Barack Obama? Because he's in a weird place, isn't he? Always, well, not always, having in the past saying things kind of off the cuff or behind closed doors about, maybe his lack of faith in Biden, not health-wise, just his lack in general, his lack of faith in Biden. But it still was his vice president. So he can't come out, or he can, but he probably doesn't want to come out and throw him under the bus. I don't know. I would find that conversation very intriguing. Comment from a viewer here, right on the fly. Schumer has never held a job. He went straight from college into politics. Yeah, he's a prime example of the issues that we see in Washington. All right, we got to take a break because when we come back, we are going to talk with our good friends from Corning Painted Post Middle School about their upcoming show, Peter Pan the Musical. So please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Stu Benz Senior Services Fund section of our program. And there's our guest this morning. There's the list, and we're going to be talking about Peter Pan the Musical. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Wow, such a big crew. I thought maybe this was a whole cast, but we were talking off the air. Tell us how many people are in Peter Pan the Musical.
Well, there's about 90 people in the cast, and then there's another 15 people that are helping backstage.
Wow. That's a huge crowd. How do you get everybody to work together like that?
Well, we all have the same goal. It's amazing the magic of theater when we are all working together towards the same goal, and everyone is doing the things that they're really good at. We're able to produce something amazing. It's interesting because when people come and see the process, they say they didn't realize so much went into it when they just see the show itself, and then they watch us go through the process, and they're like, wow. There's so many people working together. It's really very awesome.
Well, how long does a production like this take? Like, when did you start?
We started auditions.
Auditions were mid-May.
Yeah, mid-May for auditions.
Wow.
And then
And now, what does it feel like to be this close to opening performance? I'll ask all of you. Everybody has to answer this. Exciting? Good.
Also a little bit scary.
Sure.
There's butterflies.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
A tad bit stressful.
Oh, I'm sure. It's
Just a tad.
do you think you'll sleep the night before?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
we'll be
All right.
so exhausted
Yeah.
for rehearsal that we'll definitely sleep.
There's definitely
been
adrenaline
up to,
will
like,
push us
9.
through the entire weekend.
Yeah, what's the last final days before opening night like? How many practices? One, do you do double run through? How's something like that work?
Ooh, no, the show itself is 2.5 to 3 hours
Oh,
long. So
wow.
and since we have so many adults in the show, we can't really start until after everyone's done working.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a rush to get everyone ready and get as much time possible in the evening before we all turn into pumpkins.
We've been up to 9 and 10 last
Yeah,
Wow.
we certainly have.
at rehearsal.
Now, what's the atmosphere like on set just in general? Can you feel the excitement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Especially with the little kids.
Yeah,
They're
oh, yeah.
really excited.
The tiny kids.
Yeah.
It's really the best part. The best part about all of this is the incorporation of all of the age groups into the show. I personally love doing the show because it gives me the ability to work with children, and introduce them into theater.
Sure.
Something that I've been doing for over 30 years. So, if I can introduce them or help them be a part of that and be a part of that, that's what gets me going.
Now, tell me about each of your individual parts, because everybody knows Peter Pan, right? So, first of all, let me ask, how much different is Peter Pan the musical as compared to maybe the movie we all know and love?
Pretty different.
Yeah.
So the Broadway musical was popular back in 1954. Mary Martin was the first one that did the Broadway musical, and then it's gone through a couple of adaptations. As a matter of fact, I think that there is a national tour where they've kind of reimagined Peter Pan lately.
Okay.
But we're doing the original version. It's a little different, but the characters, the story is all there. We still have Peter Pan, and we are flying on the stage, which is very exciting.
So tell us about each of your characters, if you don't mind.
Want me to go
Yeah,
first?
you're up first.
Well, I'm Peter Pan.
Okay.
Um,
So that's a lot of stress.
and
You're the
so-
namesake to the musical.
Yeah, there's a lot of songs to remember.
Yeah.
A lot of lines to remember. It's been a lot of work to make sure I remember all of my songs and sing them all correctly.
Sure.
It's, because all of the Broadway versions have it Peter Pan as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of vocal range.
Oh,
to work
yeah.
with.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, but I think we've been going through it pretty well, and I think it's gone pretty well as well.
I'm Maya Moore. I play Wendy Darling.
Okay.
She's the oldest child in the Darling family. So I feel like I can kind of relate to that because I'm the oldest, and she's in charge of keeping her little brothers from making a fool of themselves.
I'm Nathan Shanchuk, and I'm playing Michael. So I'm in the show, the brother of you over there.
Over there.
And so yeah, I'm in like the whole show too.
Okay. So that's a lot of work for everybody.
Yeah.
My name's Rob Manning. I'm Captain Hook.
I would hope so. Now, how do you get ready for these parts?
A lot of practice.
Yeah.
Long rehearsals.
Yeah.
We work a lot together in rehearsals, and then the actors all have a lot of personal preparation that they do as far as learning their lines, learning their songs,
Okay.
trying to get into character. He does a great job of getting into character,
Clearly.
even when he's not on stage.
Yes, clearly.
Me? In character, never. Oh, never.
So tell me, have you been in plays before yourselves? I know you had mentioned it, Captain Hook.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been in a few. A little bit more than a few.
Yeah.
I've been doing plays since I think I was 5. And
Okay, wow.
I think I've done a play every single year since 2015.
Wow. Jeez.
I've been in plays since I was in 3rd grade, during like the elementary shows and then middle school, but it was hard with COVID to do school or musicals in middle school. But yeah, I've been in, like this past year, I've been in Mamma Mia, which I played Tanya. I've been in The Sound of Music, I played a ballroom dancer. Little Mermaid, I was one of the Mer sisters, and just Mary Poppins, stuff like that.
I have been in a lot of shows the past year.
Okay.
So I've been doing a lot more theater, which means, so this would be my 5th, I think.
Oh, wow.
5th musical now.
So none of you plan on quitting. You keep on moving on to other plays. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, because I was in Matilda, and then I was in Annie. I was in Albert Herring,
Wow.
and I was in Peter Pan now.
Yeah. Wow.
The
That's
best part about doing these shows is working with the youth.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Watching them grow in all of these shows. That's what actually makes me coming back to doing all of this, watching the growth.
And the reason why we, as a middle school drama club, host a summer community show is so that the kids can see that.
Yeah.
So the kids can see that when they get to be adults, they can still be involved in theater, that all of the things that they love about being part of that team and about part of that family, that theater family, is something that they don't have to lose once they leave school. They can still have it.
Yeah. What do you think makes Peter Pan so much fun?
Definitely the flying.
Flying.
The flying. Okay. There's
Flying is the best.
that was a quick answer.
Getting to be super evil.
Always evil.
On and off the stage, he's always evil. What do people need to know, kind of the specifics? I know that it is a middle school production, but it's at the high school.
It's at the high school, yep.
So what should people find out or need to find out about buying tickets and just about the play itself?
So they can go to the cppasd.com /tickets, that box office website, and buy their tickets online. They can choose their seat right there in the theater, or they can come to the theater on any of those nights, and we have tickets available at the door. So if they should bring cash or check. We can't take credit cards at the door, but you can pay with your credit card online if you buy it previously.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Best of luck. Best of luck on opening night and all the performances. All right, we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We want to thank Corning Painted Post Middle School Drama Club for coming in. And also in the studio this morning, we have former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. Hey, Joe.
Well, I'm following the drama club.
Yeah.
Oh,
good luck.
This is a big step down from the kids.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Oh, did they?
They got
That's awesome.
Peter Pan coming up
Oh,
tonight's
cool.
opening night.
That's a good play.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
real nice. So we were just talking off the air. We haven't talked since the debate. Think of the last time we talked. If we could play that right now,
Yeah.
how different it would
So
be.
since then, there's been like this mass. The Democratic Party has completely exploded.
Yes.
You know, it's like the Hindenburg. Oh, the humanity.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's a dumpster fire. I don't know what metaphor you want to use, but they're having a rough time.
Yeah.
In the Democratic Party right
Yes.
now.
And we're not going to gloat like they did during the whole McCarthy stuff and
Yeah.
everything with the Republican Civil War.
Yeah, I mean,
Or we can gloat.
as a Republican, there's a level of this is interesting. As an American,
Yeah.
because remember, Joe Biden's the commander in chief.
He's the president of the United States.
The world is watching.
Mm-hmm.
The world watches that debate to try and get a sense of where things are going.
Mm-hmm.
So they're watching it in China, they're watching it in Taiwan, they're watching it in Ukraine, they're watching it in Russia, and they see this is who maybe is at the helm or thinks he's at the helm or who's running the show. And my worry from a national security standpoint is somebody says, if we're going to make a move, we got to make it between now and January 20th.
Yeah. You don't think
because-
China's thinking about Taiwan right now?
Right.
God
'cause
forbid.
You
but-
got a president who's out to lunch.
Doesn't it bother you, and it's so typical of the media and Democrats in general, that it isn't about his health that they're concerned, it's about his electability.
Yeah, and also there's sort of this interesting aspect with some of the mainstream media where now they're piling on because I think it's to try and make up for the fact that they were so complicit. And, literally like a week before the debate, the narrative in the mainstream media was cheap fakes.
Yeah.
Oh, the Republicans are sitting around these clips trying to make the president look bad, and somehow it was out of context, and he's really, doing jumping jacks and calculus, behind the scenes when you're not watching.
It's like they told us about Hillary. She's so much more personable behind closed doors. It's always behind closed doors.
I've met Hillary behind closed doors. She's not particularly personable. But the situation of the media being complicit and now then suddenly they're piling on is very interesting as far as their credibility. The credibility, suddenly you have these Democrats saying, like George Clooney, 3 weeks ago he was a mess.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well,
do you know
what
Chuck
happened?
Todd?
Why now? Why are you telling us now?
We talked about this earlier this morning. Chuck Todd, it's almost like he's bragging about it. He claimed yesterday that a cabinet secretary told him 2 years ago, Joe, and he's saying, wow, no one should be surprised. Why didn't you tell us 2 years ago?
Right, exactly. Why aren't you not doing your job?
And George Stephanopoulos has to apologize for being honest.
Telling the truth,
Yes.
saying his opinion.
And
just 'cause
ABC News
on the
got
street.
mad.
I mean, it's so this is a very interesting scenario in a lot of different ways. We talk, as I said, there's national security implications.
Yes.
There's implications for how much can you trust the mainstream media. How much can you? Who's really running the show at the White House? Who's really running the show at the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Donald Trump has been astonishingly disciplined, which is exactly politically what the Republican nominee should be doing, is don't change over this news cycle.
Yeah.
Notice, I'm guessing, I don't know, I don't have any inside scoop with the Trump campaign. I'm guessing if the debate had been more even, we'd already know who the Republican nominee for vice president is.
Yeah.
Because if I was Donald Trump, I'd delay that until like the first or even second day of the convention.
Sure.
Just to not, because that's going to become the story as soon as he names that person. So don't do it. Don't do anything to take the focus off the fact that large elements of the Democratic Party are pushing for the president to go, and then he's saying he won't go. And I mean, even in New York, the governor says he should stay, and the lieutenant governor says he should go. So apparently, the lieutenant governor doesn't care what the governor thinks. So we got all sorts of things. This has just been all day. I've just been, over the last week, refresh.
Do you get nervous? Like you're waiting for alert?
Yeah, well,
right.
Like, you never know what's going to happen next.
I know.
Who's going to say this? Is the dam going to break? Is it not going to break? So from day to day, it looks like one day he's staying, and the next day no he's going.
Yeah,
and I don't. I don't
No one
know.
knows.
I don't know.
How much of a relief was it when you were watching the debate? And listen, I love watching a Trump rally like anybody else, but to watch Trump, again, to use your term, discipline, to be disciplined and not do his typical pouncing because he saw the collapse and just walk back and watch it.
I think that is because one of the things that is part of the appeal of Donald Trump, and one of the things that has been a hindrance to him is before 2015, when he came down the escalator, he had not been in politics.
Right.
And I think Donald Trump in 2016 doesn't take full advantage of the opportunity that the guy standing next to him imploding gave him, as he does, when you're 8 years down the road of being a politician at the highest possible level for 8 years, and you saw that skill set that has grown, especially the first 2/3 of the debate. He was very disciplined, and the one little jab was, I don't understand what he's saying, and I don't think he does either, which was a really good line,
and it wasn't over the top.
No, it was perfect. And so you saw some increased political experience on behalf of the Republican nominee, because the instinct of somebody who's not in politics is just like, I got to pile on.
Yeah, and then
when
you
really want to be like, all right, all right, if this is how you're going to go, let's
go ahead.
Go.
Because if he piles on Biden, then the story becomes, almost picking on grandpa kind of scenario. Then Biden gets empathy. So that was really fascinating. And what do you think? How many heads exploded across the country when they're having that conversation? I know it was a big deal about golf or whatever. And Donald Trump, I love this, looks at Biden and says, "This is childish." Like how many times people have called Trump childish at a debate? There must have been so many people saying, "How dare you?"
Right.
You know, I love things like that.
Some of the folks on the left are just apoplectic.
Yeah.
They can't. It doesn't compute in their minds. And now they're actually having to deal with the hostile media.
Yeah.
That's been another narrative. Is you have these Democrat members of Congress and the Senate that, for the first time in their lives, are getting ambushed in the hallway on Capitol Hill. Don't know how to deal with it. They're getting the media saying, "Hey, I need your comment in the next 10 minutes. Otherwise, we're going to say you didn't comment."
Yeah.
And that's how Republicans are treated all the time. And so they're finally getting a dose of it.
They don't like it.
They don't like it at all. No, suddenly the shoe's on the other foot.
Well, it goes back to something I said way back in radio, that a Democrat could never stand being a Republican for even 10 minutes.
Yeah,
They're not used to it.
They're right. They're not used to the mainstream media not being an ally. Right. So when they are treated fairly, when they are given the proper level of scrutiny that they're supposed to get, they flip out because it's their friend or their ally that's now turned on them, as opposed to, hey, the way it's supposed to work, the reason we have a First Amendment and freedom of press is you're supposed to have an independent press, independent of the government, that holds everybody accountable and is free to report on anything that's public that's going on. And that should cut both ways. You should be treated with high level scrutiny if you're a public figure, no matter whether you have a D or an R slapped on your name. Yeah. And we don't always have that.
No. It's really been fascinating. I never thought, this is how much things have changed in the last year and a half. We have a media that's attacking a Kennedy.
Yeah, right.
Never thought that would happen.
That's right.
And now you
a man who has a brainworm.
I know,
exactly. Did, I don't know.
When was the last time you actually saw a headline since the debate about Trump? That too is shocking.
No, and that's another theme that I've seen with Democrats. They're like, oh, well, what about
Trump
did
this?
X? And nobody cares, because the implications of this, again, there's political implications that are enormous. Will Joe Biden be the Democratic nominee? If he is, are you talking about a landslide for the Republicans' House, Senate, state presidency? But there's also these major national security. So if you remove him from the ticket, do you have to remove him from the presidency?
Yeah.
That's a legitimate question. Should there be Amendment 25 taken effect to say this guy is incapacitated in some way? And then there's the question of, okay, can he get to January, but then 4 more years? If he really does have significant cognitive impairment, you don't get better. You don't wake up the next day like when you pulled a muscle and you're fine. So it's only going to get worse. At best, it sort of stays the same. So this is the Democrats really can't turn this over the way they could if it was just a candidate who was having a problem, and then you swap in a new candidate. Yes, he is their nominee. Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee for president. but he's also the president.
Right.
And that is a major issue.
You've been behind the scenes and debates and things like that. When they were practicing, who still let him do that debate? Because isn't it easy, Joe, for them to come out and say, find something Donald Trump said and we can't give him this platform, we're not going to do it?
Well, as I was watching it, Frank, that's a very good question, because that was one of the things that was crossed my mind of, this wasn't something where, it's October, we haven't debated yet, and we always debate, and we sort of got to do it, and you just hold your nose and do it. It's not like Fetterman where they're doing it already during early voting, and he's, making gibberish up there.
Yeah.
Biden asked for this.
Yeah.
He did a video like he was a professional wrestler.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood, remember?
Called him out.
Yeah.
And said, I'll take you anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
So I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I've seen people blow up.
Yeah.
But it's never been a situation where they begged for the situation that caused them to blow up.
The incumbent president begged for
right,
that too.
exactly. If you're the champ, they got to come at you.
Yeah.
And so as soon as he was begging for a debate, I knew their internals were really bad.
Yeah.
And they needed a hard reset.
Yeah.
And the hope was that he goes out there, he does well, it ends the quote-unquote cheap fake narrative that, he's old, but he's fine.
Speech, the best State of the Union speech ever kind of scenario.
Well, it's a lot different when you got a teleprompter in front of you. And for the record, I never use teleprompter on Frankly Speaking, where this is candid talk. This is the real deal.
Yeah.
When you got a teleprompter in front of you and you're just reading a script, well, that's easy compared to, going on the fly. So, he asked for this. I've never seen that before. He stepped into it, and then the goal was to get rid of this narrative. And one of the most devastating things you can have happen in politics that creates a firestorm, and this is not the first time this has happened, but it's the first time it's happened at this level, is when you have something that everybody sort of knows is true. We all suspect X about this person.
Yeah.
And then something happens that verifies it. And that thing that we all thought was true is definitely true. Mm-hmm. And then having to deal with that is the quickest and easiest way to create a political firestorm.
And we can't take away the fact that they also got to pick all the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, it was stacked, they thought, in their favor, when actually those really benefited.
The rules were very beneficial to Donald Trump, because especially the rule about the mic being off when it wasn't your turn to speak. Mm-hmm. So it forced discipline on Trump. And then he, to his credit, went along with that discipline, was smart enough to use it. But it sort of put him in a position where one of his rhetorical weaknesses was taken away. Mm-hmm. And that was Biden again requesting that rule. So whoever's running the Biden campaign, if there's somebody running the Biden campaign, they are, it's a train wreck of an epic proportion.
Well, we got to take our first break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program after this. And we are back, frankly speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And our guest this morning, Joe Sempolinski. Joe, thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
We're not changing the topic.
Just for the audience, Frank is refreshing social media in case some new foot, shoe drops. We're ready. We're on top.
Breaking news. Yeah. Now they're saying Obama knew in advance of Clooney's bombshell call for Biden to drop out, but didn't object.
Well, I saw speculation of that. Apparently, and I'm not in the Hollywood elite, so I don't know.
You're that close. You're that close.
I guess Clooney and Obama are friendly, and there's speculation that Clooney doesn't write that op-ed unless Obama at least tacitly approves of it or doesn't tell him not to.
Right.
So there's those dynamics too, where Obama has great personal affection for Biden, but sort of shoved him out of the way the first time in 2016 for Hillary, and now we're talking about a movie star somehow. But now, to me, if I would imagine, again, I'm not part of these circles, the elite Democrat circles, but George Clooney telling Joe Biden to go away, doesn't that make Joe Biden dig in more?
Yeah.
Like saying, these, phony baloney. Because the response from the Biden campaign has been to attack the stamina of George Clooney, which is an interesting tactic.
Yeah.
To say, oh, Clooney was only there for like 5 minutes and he just did a photo op and left because he's this
he had to go to bed
jerk or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was there all day, all night, shaking hands and whatever.
That's so
so
funny.
now you got a tit for tat going between George Clooney and Joe Biden, which is.
Yeah,
I mean, we're in crazy
Welcome
town.
to 2024.
Yeah,
buddy.
right. Yeah.
Can you believe? But with Clooney and the way Clooney goes, the country goes. Everybody knows that. But
he's got all that ER medical experience.
Exactly,
too, right?
he
Yeah.
knows. But it's so weird because you remember when Clooney, he was a part of those great videos after Trump won in 2016. He was so confident that Trump was never going to win, and don't worry. So if I were Biden, I just come out and say, look, he's got a failed record of picking who it's going to be.
Well, that is sort of Biden. What he, from what I can tell, sort of keeps coming back to is I'm the only one that won.
Yeah.
Hillary lost to Donald Trump. That's his narrative, right? That's his, but I mean, if you look at the tapes of him from the 2020 election.
Oh, yeah.
To now, let alone tapes from when he was vice president.
Sure, yeah, of course.
I mean, had he lost a step in 2020? Yeah. But it was nothing like we're seeing even when he is in an interview setting now, the Stephanopoulos interview or the other ones that he's trying to do. So it's there's so much tape out there on this guy because he's been in politics so long that go pull up the Clarence Thomas hearing and see where he's at from compared to there. It's tough to argue that he's fine, he's just always sort of been this way. Well, yeah, Joe Biden's been saying goofy stuff his entire life. Yeah. But that's just because Joe Biden says goofy stuff. It was goofy stuff that was a complete sentence.
Yeah, right. It might have made no sense whatsoever,
right, yeah.
but it was still a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And that's what's been so interesting to see, the excuses at first. Of course, he had a cold, that he had a stutter when he was growing up. That's always been a big one that they've used. But think about how much politics have changed when, like with George W. Bush, where they'd go after one word and that was going to be the end of his campaign. Now we've accepted the fact that there could be, 40% gibberish, and the rest that's fine. That's Biden. And it's amazing how much it's been diluted, I guess, through the years.
Yeah, I mean, and I think some of that is this Democrat versus Republican, double standard
kind of
thing, where there was, if you remember with Donald Trump, I guess remember he stumbled or he drank his water awkwardly, and people were talking about the 25th Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah.
And now you have people saying, well, maybe Biden has Parkinson's, and that's good because it doesn't have the cognitive. You're arguing.
Yeah.
Something you would never say from some elements in the left about a Republican, where, again, a Republican says one thing. Dan Quayle misspelled potato.
Yeah, right. And
that was the biggest story in the world for weeks.
Yes.
It's just a blatant double standard.
And speaking of double standard, you remember it was very early on in Trump's presidency where the media demanded a cognitive test.
Right.
And then they were honestly disappointed that the president of the United States did not have a mental issue.
Right.
Do you remember that?
That's
they were. So for now, we don't really need a cognitive test.
Right. Yeah.
Like you said, the double standard on this is fascinating to watch because I think it opens the eyes of so many people that didn't believe me saying it or didn't believe you saying it. Right. Now they start to see, wait a minute, they've been covering this up for, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
Not even 3.5.
Yeah.
Let's say
and it's been right in front of everybody's face. Yeah. And also I think there has been an increased decline. Like I said earlier in the program, this is something that if he does have these significant cognitive issues, it doesn't get better. Right. So, when I was in office, I met the president, and it was, I guess we were talking about 1.5 years ago now, right? And he certainly, my interaction with him was 2-3 minutes. Right. And it was, very banal sort of discussion of how pretty the Finger Lakes are. That was what we talked about. Yeah. But, it was clear that he was frail physically. That was my wife's reaction. My wife was with me at the White House, so I met the president. But there was a point where he wouldn't stop talking.
Right.
And some of that's being a politician. But Jill was standing next to him and said, okay, Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
And she was already sort of guiding him. But even in that 1.5 years, from that brief interaction to now, there's clearly been, and you can probably go pull tape from that same time era and see what he was doing. So that just also begs the question, well, if that's how fast he can decline in 1.5 years,
right?
We're still talking about 4.5 years if he's elected.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen in that time frame? This is serious business.
Yeah. So I've got a couple more questions on this. Well, probably the whole show is going to be about this, but we better take a break before I get too far behind. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. This is Frankly Speaking, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. That's a tough one to say. Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program. Yes, and Culligan's is in the background.
Oh, there you go.
We got everything.
Everybody loves Frankly Speaking.
Yeah. There's a Pangea Global Tea House out of Watkins that's created a Frankly Speaking sandwich.
Are you serious?
Called Frankly Delicious.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, next time I'm up in Watkins Glen, that is where I'm going to.
It's a turkey club and a beer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So we're covering them all here. Okay.
All right.
All right. Back to the questions, the important stuff. So I would think, we all know that Biden and the Bidens have an ego. But, I mean, let's face it, right? They do. Wouldn't you think the ego part of them, I know they want to beat Trump for the second time, but wouldn't he also be worried about his legacy? Because his whole legacy to a Democrat is that he beat Trump. They don't really even focus on the policies. They say it's great or whatever, but they don't. That's his biggest legacy, and it's wiped away in November.
So we were talking off the air in the break about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
So Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was this liberal icon for people that agree with her politically, and now all anybody will ever remember her for is she refused to leave, and Roe v. Wade got overturned because of it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pro-life,
Yeah.
so I like Roe v. Wade being overturned.
Right.
I was in favor of Roe v. Wade being overturned. I am in favor of Roe v. Wade being overturned. But that is what people remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg for the next 200 years.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden is about to make that decision, rightly or wrongly, whichever way he makes it, from whatever your particular political perspective is. But he will be defined by the decision he makes, and which he claims he has already made. That's been interesting, by the way, where Pelosi was on Morning Joe saying, well, I hope he makes his decision soon. And they're like, well, he made it. He made it.
Didn't you see that letter?
There's a sort of like,
That's such
there's
a good point.
folks on Capitol Hill that want him to make a different decision, and they're afraid to say it.
Yeah.
But how this play, whatever the final outcome is, because remember, he could have another situation sometime between now and the election that, even if he doesn't drop out now, could force his hand later.
Yeah.
So whatever that decision ultimately really is he on the ballot in November, and how that plays out is the single thing Joe Biden will be remembered for, period. None of this other policy stuff is going to be a, sideshow to his historical legacy.
But what I think is important, you've been saying this on the program for a long time, and people I think now are shocked that this is the case. The only one that can make this decision is Joe Biden.
Yeah, and that is very important. That's a very important point. I think that is where you're seeing some of these dynamics play out right now. If there was a mechanism to remove him as the nominee, there is a mechanism to remove him as president.
Right.
The 25th Amendment of the Constitution. But if there was a mechanism to remove him as the nominee, I think you would see people being much more aggressive with him. But they know they can, if they come out and they bash him and attack him, and he says, nope, I'm staying.
Yeah.
He's the nominee. And then even if he goes down in the election, well, do you want to have all this tape on him with all these other Democrats bashing him?
Right.
And create these political... So there's a lot of Democrats being very circumspect because the president keeps saying very adamantly, I'm not going
He's been as clear. That's what's so, like you said, ironic
he's like
about Pelosi.
DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll keep the G-rated version of The Wolf of Wall
Please
Street.
do.
But he says he's not leaving. And if he's not leaving, there is no mechanism to remove him. He controls all the delegates other than like 2 from American Samoa or whatever.
Guy.
That one guy won.
They should give it to him.
Yeah, he's in second place, technically.
Yeah.
So,
forget his name.
I don't even know. Yeah, Palmer. I think his name is Palmer. I don't know. Whatever, that guy. He should be. But Biden holds all the cards. So as long as he's, able to say I'm in, he's in if he wants to be in, and which is what makes it the point earlier about his legacy that much more acute. Where however this plays out, he himself was the decision maker. It was not something that was forced on him to stay or forced on him to leave. Joe Biden wanted to wear the big boy pants and be the president. Well, he's about to make a big boy decision.
Yeah.
And
history
will be watching.
And history doesn't show he makes the best decisions.
No, not historically. No, he's had a poor track record.
Yeah, so Democrats should keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But it is so funny to me that Pelosi said that, because he could not have been more clear in that letter on Monday, and what he said over and over again. So like you said, that's just a little no.
Yeah, it was a very interesting sort of. She didn't come out and say, "Oh, he should stay. He's our guy. We're riding with Biden." And it was go.
Yeah.
She also didn't say he's got to go.
Right.
She played this sort of weird middle ground of, you know, and there's been some more of that where I think Senator Kaine, who if everybody recalls, was Hillary Clinton's running mate.
Yes. No one recalls.
No one recalls that. He does, probably. He said something like, "Oh, I think he'll make the right decision."
Yeah.
And it was very heavily implying that what the right decision would be. But what I've found fascinating about this is I thought it would be something where the pressure would build, and the dam breaks and he goes, or the pressure would build, and the dam doesn't break and he stays. And it has been from day to day, hour to hour, is the dam breaking, is the dam not breaking, varies, which has been very interesting.
Well, today, CNN put it this way: facing the most high-pressure presidential news conference in modern history. And that's today.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, isn't it kind of shocking that our President of the United States is breaking news that he's doing a press conference? First of all, not historically
That's
that
a
great.
really good point,
So he's already got that, and now the press conference he gives is basically just people watching to see if it's as bad as the debate.
Yeah, and that raises another point, which I think is important. And I've seen a lot of people make this speculation. This is not an original, but I think it is apt. If I was a person whom the world thought was demented, and I was not demented.
Right.
The way I would handle it is do everything possible to prove I was not demented. I would do like a 2-hour open press conference where you can ask me anything.
Like a Trump one. Like
I would
Trump
go
used
do
to do
town
it.
hall meetings.
Yeah.
I'd be out on the stump, free question anybody that wants to ask. I'm going in and out of Air Force One. I'd be talking to everybody.
Yeah.
I would take all the restrictor plates and regulations off.
Yeah.
And just show the world, hey, listen, I had a bad night, whatever. Yeah. And they've done the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It took them days to do Stephanopoulos. Stephanopoulos was taped.
Pre-taped, yeah.
Now he's the president. He can call a press conference on 10 seconds notice.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to show up.
He did it after the Trump, that was a
speech.
Yeah, speech. But at the same point, he, like you said, he can call that and they will come running.
Right. And literally no notice. They're all waiting to listen to whatever this guy has to say. So if you had the physical capability to prove this was a fluke, you could have done that in the next 20 hours after the debate.
Yeah.
And put this whole thing to bed. He hasn't, which strongly implies he physically can't.
Yeah.
Which means why is he still president?
I know. When I and I don't know if this is true, but I talked about it on the show back at the time. I wonder if it was the decline was around the Super Bowl getting the worst. Because remember when he didn't do that Super Bowl interview, that's when, which is a softball interview,
free
that everybody
free publicity.
Sees. When he didn't do that, I wondered what was going on.
There's no reason not to do that.
No.
If somebody lets you, you're a politician, and somebody lets you speak during the Super Bowl.
On the biggest venue.
The one night in the world where the most eyes are on one program in the world.
And it's going to be softball.
And it's going to be like,
what are you going to have
like football,
tonight?
Joe? Yeah, I do. There is literally no reason not to take that free publicity, especially going into an election year.
I'm going to check with the boss to see if we can do 3 hours this morning. Let's take a short
Who's the boss? We don't know who the boss is.
I know. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And this is a Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. Okay, a couple more things on Joe, and then Joe Biden, that is.
That's right.
And then I'll move along here.
Could he say Sempolinski? That is a question.
Yes, I don't think so. I know they talk about Clooney and they talk about Obama and Pelosi and all that. But at the end of the day, does it boil down to the donors? Because it sounds to me, I mean, what they're saying is fundraising this month could be cut in half.
I mean, by the rules,
Yeah.
quote unquote, such as they exist with politics, you would say yes. But to go back to what we talked about in the last segment, even if there's no money,
Yeah. Oh,
Joe
yeah,
Biden
yeah.
can say,
Right.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's, how deep in that, mindset is he?
Mm-hmm.
How willing is he to go down with the ship? And that's something only he can answer.
Yeah.
So if it was under normal circumstances,
Yeah.
they'd have a lot to say. But this is all between one guy's ears and a guy who's already, the reason we're having this conversation is we don't know how his mind is working.
Yeah.
So if you may have that on top of it, where his cognitive issues may lend him to not making the same political decisions he would have under normal circumstances.
And you know how, like, the media covered Trump rallies back in 2016 because they thought it was a joke. Like, look at this circus.
Right.
And it resonated with a lot of people. Like, yeah, he's really speaking to me.
Right.
And then they realized, oh, this was kind of our fault. We screwed up. Do they realize that, hey, we've covered for him this long. We screwed up.
I think I don't think they think they screwed up, because I don't think some of these people ever think they screwed up. But I think there is a realization that they've lost credibility.
Yeah.
And they had already lost credibility with a lot of people on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've sort of been exposed to sort of the independent voter, soft Democrats, because there's a lot of Democrats that are furious that they've been put in this position as what they really are, which is folks that have an agenda. And an agenda where they're willing to deceive you. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about really mainline press that was part of this Associated Press.
Did you hit my camera?
So, did I bump it? Oh, I'm sorry. Got it all worked up. But so there is a credibility issue that has grown beyond just people on the right side of the political spectrum, and that is something where I think explains some of the fervor that they are showing toward a Democrat president, which is very unusual.
To steal the term, it's unprecedented. I hate that term.
No, we're dealing with
really
a lot of. This was the most consequential debate by forget. Kennedy, Nixon.
I never want to hear that again.
Yeah.
They bring that up every debate. No, this is the one.
This is the one people are going to be talking about in 100 years.
Yeah.
Is this is what can happen?
Be studying in school in poli-sci classes. Okay, so Politico. I promised I'd ask you this. Politico had an article today or yesterday. Biden support slips in deep blue New York. We're a battleground state now. Democrats are worried the president is taking New York for granted as the state becomes surprisingly competitive. They want him to dump money into New York. He doesn't have the money.
Yeah, there's a couple issues going on here where the public polling, shows consistently at this point that Trump is within single digits in the state of New York.
Amazing.
And it goes beyond just the presidency because, if Biden can win by one vote in New York, then it sort of doesn't matter. But for the presidential level. But the House is very much in play in New York. Mm-hmm. We won the House majority, the Republicans, through winning swing seats in New York.
Right.
And, I've seen reports in the media. I haven't seen the actual polling, but there's reports that Trump is up big in Lawler's district, that he's up big in Molinaro's district, that he's up a little bit in Brandon Williams' district, which is thought to be the most competitive or the most difficult to hold of all these swing seats. So even if Joe Biden wins New York, but he wins it by 4 or 5, well, the Republicans are holding the House.
Yeah.
Period. And if we're having that conversation in New York about single digits, what's going on in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, and the states he has to win, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania? Well, if we're talking about single digits in New York, he's losing every single one of those states. He's losing the Electoral College, and Donald Trump is regaining the White House.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're having this conversation shows the problem. And then to the practical money issue, New York is big and expensive. Mm-hmm. So the amount of money that you would spend to move 5 points in New York, you could spend it in 6 other states.
Yeah.
So if things start to go bad, really bad in New York, then there may be no physical way to retrieve it.
Right. Now, we haven't even talked about this, but Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris. So what is she thinking right now? I know. What is she thinking right now? I mean, this, because the money would have to go to her, right? The way it's set up.
I mean, we're talking about unprecedented.
Yeah.
Is we've never had this late in the campaign a withdrawal of a presidential candidate. We've certainly never had this sort of thing happen under the current campaign finance laws, which really came into place basically in the 70s as the beginning of that structure. So there's a lot of open questions there. I'm sure there'd be a lot of litigation over the money, especially if they went to
But they don't have time for that.
Wasn't Kamala.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris. Yes. Very interesting. And I find it interesting that we're well into the show before we even talk about it.
I know. That's
I
how
think
crazy.
that's indicative of the situation she's in.
Yeah.
If she was close to competent,
right,
she'd already be the nominee.
Yeah. Yep. There's no doubt.
But there is an unspoken, or now being more spoken, truth that there is a significant proportion of the powers that be within the Democratic Party that think a cognitively impaired Joe Biden is a better candidate than Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
That's how toxic she is.
That's got a sting too.
And it's obviously true.
Yeah.
That because if it was anywhere close to not being true, there would be an enormous groundswell. Well, obviously, just sub in the VP. Yeah. She's great. And
they don't even mention her name.
Right. So there, and the fact that before some of these campaign finance issues started being discussed, it was, well, we may have to sub him in, but we can't sub her in. Right. And there was talk about Gavin Newsom and the governor of Michigan and all that. Gretchen Whitmer, and other people. Yeah. So that sort of shows that there is nobody that's like she's the savior, and that is a very indicative of the job she's done or not done as vice president, and frankly the political reasons for which she was picked to be the vice president.
Yeah. And do you realize, because people forget this, that she never got one single primary vote. She was out before Iowa.
Yeah, her biggest moment of the primary was calling Joe Biden a racist.
Yeah.
And she got a brief spike in the polls for doing it, and then got the job as vice president.
Yeah, and then got destroyed, because remember, she wasn't expected to be attacked, which happens in a primary because someone saw you get their points. That's right? Anyway, so I don't even think we need to spend more time on that. And I apologize to people watching. We've had so many comments coming in, but you and I kind of got off on a tangent. But one that I did, you did. The one comment I did just see, and I'm sorry I missed so many others. Will Biden announce tonight, because he's got the press conference, that he's staying or going? This is more of your prediction.
I mean, my prediction? He says he's staying.
Yeah.
So my prediction is that he says he's staying, but we're well into uncharted.
What time is the press conference?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because his first excuse was he's great, or they said that he's great between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., which is like great hours. It's a great job if you could get it as
absolutely,
president. Yeah. And then to calm people's nerves, he said, no, I'm good till 8 p.m.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering if this is like a 7 o'clock. That'd be perfect for me.
I mean, he's got to do it early. Yeah,
I'm good till 8 p.m. too.
So I get sleepy.
I get very tired. Just quickly, because we got to take one more break. Who do you think is going to be Trump's VP? We haven't, and we're doing the prime example where we haven't talked about Trump.
No,
really.
Right, exactly. Which is good on Trump. Yeah. Trump has created that situation, so that was very good tactics by the Trump campaign to remove himself from all this. Yeah. I mean, all the speculation recently has been sort of surrounding either Vance or Rubio or Burgum.
Yeah.
I don't know how much to trust the speculation because again, we're dealing with President Trump, who's an unpredictable person, and again, much like does Biden stay or go, it's one man's decision.
Yeah.
Who the VP is one man's decision. Anytime it's one human being's decision, it's really tough to predict because he could wake up tomorrow. He could have it decided right now, wake up tomorrow and somebody completely different.
Yeah.
I know he was doing sort of a tease thing with Rubio in Florida, and he was sort of like, hey, Marco, everybody thinks I'm going to pick you, whatever. And I saw something yesterday where he was asked about sort of the weaknesses of each of the people, and he acknowledged each of their weaknesses, and they have them because everybody does. So here's my prediction.
Okay.
My prediction is we will be surprised.
Yeah.
I think it'll be something where we go, oh, that isn't quite what I expected. And now that I've said that, it'll probably be one of the three guys I mentioned.
It'll be Pence again.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah. See, that would be a surprise.
That would be a surprise.
That cause a surprise.
I'm surprised, and this is not a knock on him at all. I never thought him and Rubio kind of meshed. Maybe it's a little Marco thing, or
yeah, I think there's the residency complication.
Yeah.
One of them will have to
yeah.
stop being a Florida resident.
Yeah.
That's probably easier to do with Trump than
Yeah.
it is with Rubio, because Rubio's a sitting senator. Because if he left being a resident of Florida, he'd have to resign that seat, which now then means, I'm assuming, Ron DeSantis appoints himself to the Senate. And I don't know if that's what Trump wants to do.
That's a good point.
So I would assume what would happen is Trump would change his residency back to New York State if they had to do that. And the reason there's a residency issue is electors, when they cast their electoral votes, cannot vote for president and vice president for two people from the same state.
Yep.
This happened when Bush picked Cheney. He was a resident of
yeah.
Texas as well, and he changed residency back to his home state of Wyoming. Now that was easy because he was from Wyoming, and it was not a sitting elected official at the time. He was this a businessman. Now so that's the sort of practical hiccup. You're also referring to sort of the political.
Yeah.
And that sort of cuts both ways, where you could say, well, they don't mesh well together, or you could present it as, well, they appeal to two different wings of the party.
Yeah.
And does that
That's
unify
true.
the party? If some people that are maybe skeptical of Trump are more comfortable with Rubio, or vice versa. So I don't know. But that's my prediction, just because Donald Trump is a unpredictable
Yeah.
person. My prediction is some sort of surprise. And more often than not, the VP selection is some degree of surprise. Again, Cheney was a big surprise, the one I just referenced.
Palin
was a huge surprise. Biden was a surprise. Nobody really expected that. Al Gore was a surprise because people thought he was too much like Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested. I'm intrigued, and I don't have like a firm feeling like, oh, it's probably J.D. Vance or it's probably Governor Burgum or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's Donald Trump, so I think we're gonna have
fun.
He's gonna have some fun.
You going to the convention?
No, my daughter is having surgery the week after the convention,
Yeah.
so we're dealing with some family stuff.
You went in the past, though, right?
I went in. Well, I was going to be an alternate delegate
that's right,
in 4 years ago, and obviously that convention sort of didn't happen. But I was in Cleveland 8 years ago. I was there in my capacity as a campaign staffer. So I wasn't a delegate or anything.
Right.
But it is for those folks who are going to Milwaukee, or there are Democrats out there going to the Democrat convention, it is definitely a once in a lifetime type experience.
Great. All right, we got to take our last break, and then we're going to wrap things up. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. And in that studio this morning, we've got Joe Sempolinski. Joe, one quick question from a viewer. Tulsi Gabbard, great VP choice with balanced ticket.
Tulsi's Democrat.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem I have. I get the reason.
I understand her appeal. I understand that she's a Democrat that doesn't talk like a Democrat.
Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day,
if you look at her votes in Congress, she's not a conservative.
Right.
I am somebody who I wish everybody became a Republican. So I'm not bashing her for becoming a Republican. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat before he became a Republican.
Right.
Donald Trump had different political. I think he was in the Reform Party for a while. Remember?
Yeah.
So I'm not. That's not a negative on her personally. I'm glad that she has moved to the right, and she clearly has over the last few years. But that doesn't mean you hand her the keys of the car.
Yeah, that would be my big fear. Pardon me, I'm sounding like Biden.
Oh, hey.
To complete, I don't even know how to segue to this. Let's completely change the topic.
All right.
So let's talk about the local races, because it is getting that time of year. I mean, it used to be politics was always like, Labor Day was the kickoff?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No, we
Not even
start,
close.
we don't stop.
Yeah, that's right. So tell us what's happening in the local races, because if people aren't aware, you are the Republican chairman here in Steuben County.
Yeah, so the big update since we last talked is there was a resignation in county judge. Judge Roach decided to retire and resign. And I wish him all the best. I've known Mr. Roach my entire life, and he seems to be enjoying retirement so far. And so because of that, the Republican committee had a meeting, and we have nominated Corning City Judge Matt McCarthy to be the next county and family court judge, is technically the position. Since that position was already on the ballot, we had to then backfill for that position at City Court, and Chris Ferratella, local attorney, who's somebody I've also known my entire life, will be the Republican nominee for Corning City Judge. So those are the two big sort of changes. So when you go to vote in Steuben County, you're going to have two positions at the state level, two state Supreme Court judge positions. They're not running against each other, so you vote for two. And then two separate county court positions where Chris Tunney will be the Republican nominee for one of them, and Matt McCarthy will be the Republican nominee for the other. And for the state ones, it's Judge Stacey Romeo and Ed White are the two. So those are, we're going to have 4 judicial nominees everywhere in Steuben County, and then also the Corning City judge position. But I'm very confident. I'm happy with all 5 of those candidates. They're all very qualified. We were in a position to really take that seriously and put the most qualified candidate on the ballot, which certainly was Judge McCarthy, and I'm looking forward. He also will have the conservative line. We have a great relationship with the state Conservative Party chairman. We were able to work that out, and so I'm excited about him moving up from the city to the county.
We're going to have Matt on soon. We've talked to him just the other day, and he's going to be on the program, so we'll get to learn more, but that is a great pick.
He is a wonderful guy and an excellent judge. He's been the Corning City judge for 10 years, and he's an acting county court judge already, so he will do a fantastic job. For that is a 10-year term. That's an important position. When you put a judge in there, if you get a bad one, you're stuck with them for a long time, so you got to get a good one, and we certainly do.
Now, how about your race?
Things are going well. I've been out and about campaigning. I was meeting with a bunch of firemen in Allegheny County last night, and that was great. And fundraising's going well, and I'm taking the kids around.
How many fairs and things?
We're doing parades. We did the 4th of July parade in Andover. We're doing Wellsville's got a parade. We took the kids to Olean for the fireworks, and I have found people. I could post that I cured cancer while walking on the moon, and if I just post a picture with my kids out and about in the 148th Assembly District, it gets 5 times more attention. And I think that is because people want to vote for somebody who is one of them, who they are relatable, and as somebody with a young family, who is sort of a normal person, is resonating with people, and I have done everything in my power to try and be as accessible to all the local officials, and part of this job is obviously legislating, being a city assemblyman. Part of it is also being, constituent service, both individual constituents, but also broadly written for what does Cattaraugus County, Allegheny County, and Steuben County need? What do the cities in that district need? What do the towns in that district need? So I've been really going out of my way to be out and about in the district, in all corners of the district as far as possible, listening to those particular needs so I can really hit the ground running come January.
How can people help your campaign?
JoeSempolinski.com.
The name's on the bottom of the screen.
There you go. JoeSempolinski.com. You can donate. You can sign up. It's all through the website. You can find out my positions on the issues of whatever issue may be of concern to you.
Now, we're just about out of time, but I do want to thank everybody who commented today. I'm sorry I didn't get to more of them, but I did happen to see one that we've got to read. What's the chances? Great show today. Always enjoyed Joe's take on what's going on.
I like that comment.
Yeah, me too.
He's not saying all the bad ones. He said the one good.
We'll keep those for when after you leave tomorrow on tomorrow's show. One last thing, because I wanted to just get your interest on this, as you are the Republican chairman here in Steuben County. Newsweek has a piece out. Young people are flocking to the Republican Party. Did you see that?
I'm glad to hear that. I don't know if I'm considered a young person anymore.
I wasn't saying you were.
But that's right.
No one ever said that.
But no, I mean, I think
it makes sense.
Young people are smart, and young people are looking at the results of particular policies, and they're looking at how free and prosperous is their future going to be. And if you want a free and prosperous America, the policies that are presented from the rightward conservative side of the perspective are the ones that are going to lead to that. And if you want a future that's less free and less prosperous, you can always vote for the Democrats.
All right, final question, and one more comment. This is from a viewer. Thanks to Joe Sempolinski. Always a pleasure to watch, and they wish your family well next week.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
With a prayer.
Thank you.
With a prayer.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so next month when we're on the program. What are we going to be talking about?
Who knows?
Who knows?
I don't know. That's why it's fun. That's why it's live. Anything could happen.
I know.
We don't know.
I would love to watch last month's and see how different it is.
That's right. Totally different.
Yeah, but do you think Biden will still be in there? This is just for fun.
Question.
Just for fun.
We'll see.
I will hold you to it, but
no.
Yeah.
I don't see how he doesn't survive the month.
I don't.
But again, it's his decision. So I would that would be if you said to me bet.
Yeah,
that's my bet, but I wouldn't bet the rent money.
No, I know. It's so much fun. Boy, this is good. This is an exciting time to be alive, isn't it, Joe?
Craziness.
All right, well, thanks so much for spending so much time with us, Joe. And I also want to thank the Corning Painted Post Middle School Drama Club. Peter Pan opens tonight and runs till the 13th at 7 p.m. And then July 13th at 2 p.m. for that matinee. You can get the tickets at the door, but remember to bring cash. They don't have the credit card system if you're going to the door. And that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Tomorrow we have some guests, too, but I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I'm sure they're going to be great guests.
I'm sure they are.
They always are. All right. Tune in every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll see you tomorrow morning.